Yeah, it is pointing at me. I can't see with the screen. Look, I'm returning this at the library. You know, in my song, oh, the angle's not great again. In my song, in the last 60 years, I mentioned Stan Lee, but you have to read the lyrics that I didn't finish from the draft that are written down there. Excelsior. C-E-L is in capital letters. I think he likes to write it. So he wrote this book here about his life, and I'm going to read you a few passages because, I didn't expect not to be disappointed as somebody who has, psychological insight to evaluate others. And I'll finish with my conclusion about what studying his life tells us about ourselves, Like he starts by saying that, his mom would just love to watch him read. And the kind of mom that, let's say, would never find fault in anything he does, like he's a perfect little kid. And then he did get a younger brother, I believe. And still, his ego, would have been built from the parenting before, right? So I'll read you a few passages because, he writes heroes in a wholesome way. But does he live up to it himself, Well, probably not. Probably his sense of self-image is infantile. And, and he's a little bit self-serving, but he is so reflecting the infantile norm of his time. And it's not better today, it's worse, right? The egocentrism today is worse, and actually people think they're much greater than him while having accomplished so much less. Although not everything he accomplished had nobility in it. But he's not necessarily able to see this because for him success was image, was awards, was popularity, fame, and was income and salary as well, the things he brags about. When he talks about his brother here, I sometimes feel, in an effort to be extremely fair, I've bent over backwards not to favor him when he gave his brother work, in the comics industry, over any other artists or writers because he's my brother. So I just want to say right here and now that my brother Larry is one fantastic writer and artist, and equally as important, one hell of a great guy. So still, his effort here to give praise to his brother is very, very limited. There's a nice drawing, but the words he uses kind of, if that's the best he can come up with, when he can come up with, better writing for praising his characters that aren't real, you can tell he's still, the parent's pet kind of thing. And it's not that he's promoting this, it's just a victim of that kind of parenting, right? When he talks about Steve Ditko, he just didn't seem happy working with me anymore. I was never sure what bothered him, but I could tell he was disappointed. Whatever the reason, there was no longer any warmth to our relationship. So he was looking for warmth only and not disagreements, because he's not big on disagreements unless they're in fiction. And here he's known Steve so long that to be able to say so little about what they were not in agreement of really shows his lack of the ability to, let's say, learn from others or reference another person's point of view, or it's still limited, the people skills that he had. And yet, he's still somebody that I want to praise in this song. And I'll explain why he's the lesser of multiple evils for, by human standards, for choosing role models and heroes. So he's still talking about Steve here. As I look back on that time, I feel that Steve may have felt somehow slighted. He wanted to be known as Spider-Man's co-creator, and that was okay with me. I started calling all the artists who did a first issue with me my co-creators. But despite that, by 1966, I'm sorry to say, he was gone. So you can see here is a lack of objectivity in, let's say, sharing fame, you know. And when Marvel Industries prop up this flaw in him, in the way they featured him in the movies, you know, they make it worse. But what is worse, and we're getting to the real villains here very soon. Now, he's saying one of the friends that he's had in other companies is Bob Kane, the creator of Batman. And here's some hypocrisy, is when the Michael Keaton movie of Batman came out, you know, he has to admit that he was, you know, it was frustrating for him. There's a lot of actually his real feelings and thoughts and emotions on things are not so much in the writing as in the choice of imagery and the order of it in this dialogue, in this book on him. I would read this again. You can get great insights. If you're studying, let's say, graphic novels or literature through this kind of medium at university, you could do an entire course on this book about the complexity of this, because, you know, this was not thrown together very quickly, like a lot of what his work was, that sometimes just became famous because he's the one that did it at the right time. Here he had done a joke where his wife was a trophy wife. But really, if you look at how he decided to ask her to marry him, even though he wrote this, you can tell that's really what he was afraid to lose, you know, his choice of a trophy wife. And Ladysmith is, you know, this is what Ladysmith will forever be known for, right? This is what they're proud of. It's not that an Homo sapien lived among them and role modeled this, including to religious people, how to, through hardship, send the right message of right and wrong at higher levels. Now, at the end here is a lot of features that he mentions about, you know, people he met and that knew his name and things like that, and famous people. So again, this is how he evaluates his life. But do you know this kind of fakeness in him, although it's cute in a way and innocent, is it was taken advantage of by people that were a lot more conniving, a lot more devious in their manipulations of his ego to serve themselves and profit themselves over time. So the supervillains that he helped create was more not through his writing of heroes and their opposites, but of who he lived, his own psychohistory, his own psychological profile, and how people, let's say in the comics or Marvel Industries of movies, have become better at him, less innocent in selling images that are false and benefiting from the norm through the fake image of having lived a great life or them being heroes themselves. And of course, unconsciously, he kind of knows this, because now he's finishing, coming back to a part of this that he introduced earlier, is meeting his younger self and wanting to advise him. So you can tell there are regrets. You know, he can't deviate from self-aggrandization. I'm going to have to practice that word. You know, like blow up his image. He can't stop from doing this, but he also can't stop from admitting unconsciously that he wished he would have done better in so many ways.